explain the scam first.
They call you up. They say, hey, this is such and such from Coinbase security team. We're noticing some attempted logins in Turkey or something like that. Is that you? No, it's not. Oh, well, I'm going to send you a security code. And then they start sending you security codes, which are basically just like your login info. Really, the goal of it is to get you into a high anxiety state, get you to give up information, and then get you to calm down, right? Get you to like feel satisfaction and thankfulness for the act of securing your account. When what you've actually done is now you have a great amount of comfort and satisfaction and thankfulness toward a guy who actually got socially engineered you into getting you to log him into your account. And it's a very weird emotion, I think, for people when they realize that they have stolen from themselves, essentially. They basically walked the thief through their home and said, here's where my safe is. This is the combination. Would you like to look in it so that you can secure my goods? And the guy goes, yeah, actually, the safe isn't the safest place. How about my pockets? And then he like takes all the gold out of your safe and walks out. And then you're like, oh, what a nice guy. Like that's essentially like the feeling. And then these guys often don't realize they've been stolen from for days because they're so thankful.
Welcome to the show, Junseth. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Love to do it.
People may know you as like the progenitor of the OG Bitcoin podcast, Bitcoin Uncensored, RIP. But these days, you can be found shit posting under the moniker Butt Dickerson on Twitter. Can you tell me,
Dick Carson,
how you came up with that? Dick Carson?
Yeah, it matters.
It's like it's like a reference.
No. Well, I did. I had this vision in my head of a small claims court, and then I thought to myself, because it's at very small claims is the handle, and it's because I got kicked off of being Junseth, obviously. So I'm for obvious reasons. I'm surprised that Butt Carson has survived, but I had this vision of like, what if your friend like drinks your Gatorade bottle though, and like you want the money for that and he refuses to pay you, then you have a very small claim, right? So you want to take him to very small claims court. So I took that handle. and then I needed a name, and I just thought there's nothing more childish than butts and dicks. So I went by the name Butt Carson, and then just started posting.
That makes total sense. I mean, if you like to get into the pedantic like little battles, then you're perfect for Bitcoin. We have a lot of that going on. We can come back to it, but I want to get into the meat of this.
Well, the thing is like when people have to cite you for things that you said that are important, if you happen to say something important, it's just I've realized that they do the meme, they do the names, the internet name you've picked thing. So, you'll be reading and they'll be like, pedophile 18 said, and he was responded to by jerkin shit 37. And like these are very funny. So I just thought like, it would be funny if I ever say anything important and they have to report it that this is something Butt Dick Carson said. That's really what it was. So anyhow, there you go.
Now that Elon's in charge, you can say whatever. We have the edgelord up at the highest position of power.
That's true.
And so it's appropriate for the day and age we live in.
Yeah.
So let me get into the questions I want to ask you. So, okay. So, you, as far as I'm aware, like didn't do a whole lot of like recorded interviews for a while. You're kind of like the the bronze age, the golden age of Bitcoin podcasting, the 2010s. But then you threw out some interviews on your SoundCloud about a year ago where you caught some like scammers, like actually like American sounding guys trying to like fish you out of your Bitcoin. What got you into, why did you like try to like capture these interviews, and like why were we even trying to do this in the first place?
Well, so the first call that I got, I was driving down the road and someone called me and was very, very nice and sounded like they might actually be from Coinbase support. And I was having heart palpitations. And then as I was driving, I thought to myself, this is obviously a scam, but this, what it is it's the person, the personalness, the personality of the person calling me is so practiced that it made me think twice about whether it was a scam. So I was in the car in a place I couldn't do anything about it. And I'm having heart palpitations with the idea that someone's like gotten into my Coinbase account, which is a funny thing for me to have heart palpitations about because I don't have any Bitcoin in there, right? There's no coins in my Coinbase account. So what are they going to do? And yet somehow this is like, raising my blood pressure, and I'm becoming very anxious about what this means and wondering maybe I do have some Bitcoin in there, but it would still, even if I did, it would be de minimis. So I'm having to like, go through all of the iterations of thoughts and realizing that I'm a person who's dealt with these scams for longer than almost anybody in the space. And if these are giving me sort of second pause, then they have to be capturing people. They have to be. So I got that first call, didn't think anything of it. I was like, well, that was crazy. Like that's a very interesting little scam. And then the same day I started getting more calls, and I started getting, I probably got 10 to 15 a day. And honestly, they still go on. So, probably 5 a day still, but 10 to 15 a day for, I don't know, 2 months. And I would just hang up on them. And then, one day I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can start answering these and see if I can get someone to like get on and talk to me about this. Cause I'm very curious about it. And also like, screw them. Like they're stealing people's money, and I'm curious about how it works. And they're doing it enough. This has been going on long enough for a couple of months that I'm like, they got to be making some money to keep doing it. And so I resolved to try to capture them. And my thoughts are, it's the same as sales. It's just a theory of large numbers. If I get enough of these guys on the phone, I will eventually get one who will start talking and bragging, and because they're all different personalities in the same way that these guys are, and so I sort of just practiced. I practiced insulting them, being nice, just seeing what it was, like how far down the value chain could I take them before, they felt invested enough to speak with me. And so I practiced dozens and dozens of times and kind of came up with like a formula that seems to get, I would say like 1 in 10 of these guys to talk. Maybe a little bit less, but like maybe around 1 in 10 probably will stop and say too much. Only maybe 1 in 3 of those are really interesting conversations. A lot of times I'll just insult my mom and dog and tell me that I have sex with objects that I haven't yet.
Well, and again, yet. Like, how would they know?
Well, yeah, so, but I'm not saying I won't try them. I'm just saying I haven't tried them yet, So,
yeah. Yeah, Bitcoiners have all sorts of weird predispositions, but describe to me for the audience, like, what's like the arc of the conversation? Like, how does it start? Because everyone, if you haven't already, go and listen to Junseth's SoundCloud. I'll link it in the description. Go listen to his interviews, but describe like how does the narrative arc of the conversation go? Because it's really interesting how you kind of lead these people through learning about what they do and how they do it.
Well, how does the arc of my conversation with them go, or how does the scam go?
Actually, explain the scam first, just for foundation.
Sure. So they call you up. They say, hey, this is such and such from Coinbase security team. We're noticing some attempted logins in Turkey or something like that. Is that you? No, it's not. Oh, well, we need to start securing your account. Would you help us do that? I'm going to send you a security code. And then they start sending you security codes, which are basically just like your login info. So like they're resetting passwords or, doing other things. And they're trying to get you to like basically get them access into their account. Because like the easiest way I think people don't realize this. If you have a secure password, you're golden. Ain't no one getting into that account unless they have a quantum computer. And if they have a quantum computer, they're not calling you. They're, going to Wells Fargo and, changing digits in ledgers. So like, they don't have a quantum computer. If they do, we're all screwed. So there's no point in assuming that they have a quantum computer. And so if you have a really strong password, I don't know, 50 characters. Just if you are like me and have absurdly long passwords, with high entropy, you are golden. No one's getting into that account unless you've leaked your password. And so when they tell me that there's a data breach, I mean, honestly, the way to handle that would be that I log into my account, I look at it, make sure it's okay, and then change the password if I actually am worried about that. Instead, they want to do stuff for me. They want to lock the account down. They want to make sure that nothing is going on. And then if you actually do log into the account, the things that they say that they're doing, like, oh, we're putting a hold on it, like none of that stuff is actually happening. You could still send money out. It's just, your account is in the exact same state it was when you started, but no one really looks at this stuff. And so really the goal of it is to get you into a high anxiety state, get you to give up information, and then get you to calm down, right? Get you to like feel satisfaction and thankfulness for the act of securing your account. When what you've actually done is now you have a great amount of comfort and satisfaction and thankfulness toward a guy who actually got socially engineered you into getting you to log him into your account. And it's a very weird emotion, I think, for people when they realize that they have stolen from themselves, essentially. They basically walked the thief through their home and said, here's where my safe is. This is the combination. Would you like to look in it so that you can secure my goods? And the guy goes, yeah, actually the safe isn't the safest place. How about my pockets? And then he like takes all the gold out of your safe and walks out. And then you're like, oh, what a nice guy. He's like, he's securing my gold in his pockets. Thank God. Like that's essentially like the feeling. And then these guys often don't realize they've been stolen from for days because they're so thankful. They don't even go look. They just think that Coinbase has got their butts, you know? So that's the scam. For me, what I do is I try to get the scammers to invest a little bit into thinking that they have a whale on the phone, that the whale is susceptible to giving them info. And then usually I turn it around on them and I say, hey, can I ask you a question? And then I'll try to personalize it. I'll ask them if their mother knows what they're doing. I'll ask them, like, I've watched a lot of the way that they deal with things in their group. They use a lot of salacious language. So I'll ask them if they're gay, you know, stuff like that, things that they would find insulting. These guys they're usually really young. What it'll get them doing is talking. And I actually have a recording that I've held back of a scammer who called me up. I talked to him, asked him some questions about that I think are sort of conscience twinging questions. And he called me back 2 weeks later, high as all get out. And he says, I've decided to quit. I fired my staff and I am no longer scamming people. I can't do it. You were right. And it's a remarkable recording. And he asked me what he should do. And I tell him he should just give the money back to you. So he's like, no, I'll give it to charity. And I was like, it's not yours to give to charity. It's someone else's money. You know, you're going to give someone else's money to charity. Like what's going to happen when you get caught or if you get caught and they want the money back, they're going to have to go to the charities and let them know that you gave them stolen money. And I was like, you might as well keep it, but you should give it back, you know? So it's an amazing recording. I haven't released it because I would love to know more about this guy, and I'm hoping that maybe he calls back again and I don't burn it. But yeah, like these are I get about 1 in 10 to talk, and like I said, maybe 1 in 3 of those are really interesting.
And these are like young kids. Like when I listen to it, I hear like they sound like white American guys who like maybe even in high school or like in college or something. Like they sound like young men. I mean, and that's kind of what they tell you, it seems.
There's a lot of debate about this.
Like,
yeah, I agree. There's a lot of debate about these guys. They'll tell me they're 17 or 16 or 18 or whatever. And everyone tells me that they're lying and that they're actually just trying to like, tell me, but that they're younger than they are so that they can't get prosecuted or there's, no way to identify them. But I actually think a lot of them are telling at least close to the truth about their age. They are young guys. This is demonstrated in the one who called me back and left the profession. Because these young guys think that the money that they're taking is a lot. They'll be like, someday I'm going to make 30,000 a year, and then I'm going to make 60,000 a year, and then I'm going to be a millionaire, and they just think these numbers that they're throwing out are like really, really large numbers, and that this stuff is worth like really sacrificing their later life for, because they can earn all this money now possibly and put themselves at high risk. They're recruited, from what I understand, generally on Roblox and Minecraft. So you're already starting with the younger demographic. I don't think that these guys are much older than they're telling me. And we've seen it when the police do actually, or the FBI actually does arrest them. They're really young, really, really young. And it's even weirder than that because they have a whole network. These young guys have developed a network they have Telegram accounts where there's scammers from all over the nation, and they'll literally ask scammers in an area to go do dirty work for them. So they'll be like, hey, such and such a person at this address has done whatever. Can you go through a brick through his window? And they'll do it.
You mentioned that you've seen, obviously some guys who do this have been caught. Have you checked up on those and kind of followed that into the story? Do you see those public arrests, and do you kind of gauge that against what you see on as you're doing primary research as the potential scammy?
Well, I think people think I did a lot more research than I did. My only research has been just talking to these guys, and I haven't done much more. When I see the arrests, I wonder if any of the guys I've talked to are in them. And I get all these tweets saying, hey, I think this guy is the guy. And they might be right. I have no idea. And I really have no way of knowing. I can't hear their voice or anything. And I just don't know. It would be interesting to have confirmation. I would fly anywhere to interview someone I interviewed previously in prison. I would love that. It would just be so interesting to hear the perspective of a young kid who's maybe got 3 or 4 more years on him, who's now having to deal with the ramifications of what he did, and realizing that they weren't so small. Because I think a lot of the times, a lot of these guys think that the freedom that is at stake is a couple of years. And they might be right, but I don't think they are. I think that it's going to be potentially 10, 15, 20 years, maybe more. And I really want to know whether they think that's worth it. Because a lot of them do have this crypto. Oh, there's one of them now. A lot of them do have this crypto sitting there hiding. And I do wonder how much it'll be worth when they get out of prison, and if they'll still have it. It's a really interesting scam for that reason, because the state can't necessarily compel them to release their money, although they might be able to hold them in contempt forever. I don't know if they don't give these addresses. So I don't really know. I don't know if they have stashes elsewhere, if they'd be able to access them. If once they access them when they get out, that means they go back because, perhaps the authorities have mapped their wallets and everything else. I don't know. This is, Bitcoin. So you can, there's a lot of things you can do to obfuscate who you are and what you're doing with your money.
So you haven't they'll take whatever crypto assets you have in your Coinbase or similar account.
Oh yeah.
Have you been able to check to see if they, do you know what they probably tell you what they do with it, but have you been able to verify what they do? Do they convert it all to ETH or Bitcoin and then hold it? Do they mix it? Any idea about those types of things after they manage to get it?
They all tell me what they do, and I don't believe any of the things they say. I think the reality is that it's really, really hard to launder money, and these young kids have no idea how to do it. And so I think what they do is they do this and they just have the money sitting there and they have no idea how to sort of launder it through exchanges or whatever. And they're just kind of hoping that either it will be forgotten about or that someday it will be easier to launder. And I don't think that's going to be the case. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be, but I'm guessing that it'll be more and more expensive to launder crypto because it is, so traceable. Some might use some of these sort of decentralized exchange type things to get it into Monero and then pull it back out. But I think there's problems with that. I think a lot of times, at least in early days of Monero, if you put in crypto, you'd have to wait a long time so that you wouldn't get the same outputs or the same inputs in your outputs. And, so it's not a simple problem. And I don't know that they know what they're doing with it. They all claim they're buying expensive cars and stuff. From the arrests we've seen, a lot of times it's how they get caught. Is they actually do go and they buy 12 Ferraris. There's
one guy or those 2 kids or something was it the Bay Area who?
Yeah, they were buying Birkin bags for all the women.
Yeah. They were
still undesirable, still uneffable.
What is it? 100K. We all get girlfriends, and
T.S. Eliot wrote a poem about that called "The Uneffable." It was effable thieves.
Yeah. It turns out women just want charm. So
and maybe good looks like me.
Yeah, 100%,
I don't think charm even matters. I think it's 6-packs. Have you seen the whole 4chan thing with they go on to these dating sites
or something?
They're like that, and they're like, "Hey, I'm a pedophile. I and the women will be like, hey, yeah, okay, so you don't do that now, do you? Like, they're like, no. yeah, I actually do. Okay. Can we go on a date? Yeah, you have a six-pack. So, I don't know what women want, but apparently they don't want crypto bros, even ones that buy them Birkin bags. They will take the Birkin bags, however.
Hey, Will here with Blockspace Media. Did you know that we have individual feeds for all our shows? If you're watching the Mining Pod, Bitcoin Season 2, or the Court Show, be sure to check out the individual feeds. You can find them on your podcast player of choice, whether that be Spotify, Apple, YouTube, etc. Just type in Blockspace Media and you'll find all our shows pop up, or just type in the individual show name like the Mining Pod or Bitcoin Season 2. Be sure to hit that subscribe and give us a 5-star rating so we can continue to bring you the best content in Bitcoin.
Okay, so I'm kind of interested. This is somewhat relevant in the broader American culture, but you talk about how these kids, they say they meet in they're often the breeding grounds, the recruitment grounds are often like your Roblox or your Minecraft server, and then they kind of professionalize, get in more like Telegram chats, and they maybe have some almost like like they train under somebody or they form a little collective.
I like the idea that Telegram is the professionalization. We're big boys now. We're in Telegram.
They're just shit posting all day instead of on some
they
news
Minecraft
server.
They shit post all day long. It's crazy. Yeah. By the way, that's a good way to get them talking a little bit, is to tell them that that they were recruited for Minecraft or Roblox. Every one of them is baffled that that. What? How did you know?
But it's like, it's interesting because I'll throw like a general cultural thing out there. I mean, like, this is kind of happening across a bunch of different mediums. The kids spending time on these, like, you might call them third places, but in Roblox, and they turn into kind of I don't like the word radicalized. They turn into like unconventional like focus and interest and specialization. I don't know. You're a denizen of the internet.
What's interesting is that it used to be that you'd send your kids onto sort of these apps that allowed anybody on, and what you had to worry about was if you had a young boy or girl, frankly, a creepo coming up and being like, send me some nudies, And I don't think that fear has gone away for parents, but I think parents don't actually know that this is probably more common, that you get into these groups and hey guys, we're making a lot of money doing this thing. And they don't, these are young kids. I think a big part of it is that they have malformed consciences, and their, what is this, cerebellum or whatever isn't developed yet, or whatever, the medulla oblongata.
Their frontal cortex.
The frontal cortex isn't quite as developed. I mean, I think that this is actually like preying right on that sort of center of the mind, because I talk to these guys, they have an ability to really rationalize it morally, and they also have an inability to sort of be consistent morally on the subject. It's really interesting. I don't know exactly how to parse it, but I do know that there's a lot of in their mind, there's a lot of ambiguity as to whether what they're doing is bad or good, and whether it matters. And there's a lot of nihilism among these kids too, where it's sort of this get mine mentality, which I find really interesting as well. There's, I wonder if that's generational, and what can be done about it.
It does, in the interviews I've heard, you ask like why, and you ask like, how do you feel about the person you're scamming? And if I recall, like a lot of the responses are like, well, they're wealthy, they're a crypto OG, they can spare it, and it's their fault for falling for this. Like there's a lot of backpedaling and like depersonalization or justification because what they do isn't harmful. And, that's really interesting, because I think about like who they're probably scamming, because they're probably scamming people. It almost like self-selects for people who have most of their eggs in one basket. And
or
that's the counterparty eggs. So
but like it's a hard thing for many of the people that they're going after. That's their life savings. That's the risk they took for their family, and that was actually one of the reasons the anxiety is so high for them, right? Because they realize that if their Coinbase is hacked, everything is gone. So what do? Is they self-hack their Coinbase, And that's a weird reality of this, is that it does sort of self-select for people that have their eggs in one basket. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about broader Bitcoin culture.
All right.
You're a Bitcoin. You like to comment on things. You wrote the book on posting about Bitcoin culture and Bitcoin itself. And
I like to think that Bitcoin Uncensored is the inventor of the modern toxic Bitcoin culture. Very happy to take credit for that. Yeah,
it's the Merkle root of all Bitcoin.
The first block, block 0.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think? What's your take on Bitcoin culture, more fragmented than it has been, but it's evolved since your podcast. What's your thought about the state of Bitcoin discourse right now? Big open question. I'm just curious about your, every single week it seems like there's a new thing, some new spicy thing. What's your take on how Bitcoiners talk these days?
There's there seems to be a lot of new people with very, very surprisingly advanced opinions on things that I don't think they know anything about. That would be, kind of like people. I see a lot of people praising or denigrating things like Taproot and, whatever. And I can't imagine that if you've been here for 6 months, anything about Taproot or its advantages or disadvantages, at least not in a way that would make any sense. Like, how did we get here? I think everything in Bitcoin needs to be contextualized in the how did we get here question. Because like nothing in Bitcoin arose from nothing, right? There's always a path that got us here. And it might be that someone died and we weren't able to do something because there was a patent on it and that, is no longer being exercised or something like that. It could be that maybe, the old way we did it was just really bad, or it could be, like in the case of SegWit, it might be that there's a lot of disagreement, but even a person who doesn't like SegWit is the person that figures out how to soft fork it. And the debate, goes forward and most people agree that, SegWit is the way to go. And then, maybe SegWit causes problems and maybe that's a reason why, I don't like, just whatever the context is, like people, I think, miss a lot of the history, the historicity of what they're discussing. And it matters because contextually, if you want to have a debate today about what Bitcoin ought to be or what is good about Bitcoin today, I don't think you can do that divorced from the historicity or the history of how we got here. And I think that matters. And I think that's lost a lot contextually in the debates. So the state of Bitcoin today is kind of the state of how it's always been. You have a lot of new people with very loud opinions. And then that kind of is the noise stratum. And then you have people with much more sophisticated opinions having an actual discussion above them. And I think that the noise stratum thinks that they are the more important of the two debate havers, and they're just usually not.
I mean, I've been around a long time too, but I wasn't as I would say ingrained or central to the debates, say in the block size war. You've seen a few different eras of this. There's currently a hot debate going on right now, which doesn't necessarily revolve around a fork, but it's again a controversial issue, a lot of emotion and some ulterior motives, some clueless motives. Do you think that we are better at arguing? Do you think everyone's just gotten dumber? It feels to me that everyone's just gotten stupider in the past 5 to 8 years.
Bitcoin's just Groundhog's Day, man. Every single cycle brings in new people. Those new people have very, very, very quickly have opinions, and they're the same opinions that you have combated and heard the last 5 cycles. And I'm not a big cycle guy, but at least as far as cycles happen or they've been happening in the same ways, this happens every single time the price goes up. The new guys come in, they're dumb as F. They are really, really, opinionated, and there's more and more of them every time. And they cannot believe that you don't see Bitcoin the way they do it. I have a good friend whose brother just got into the crypto space. And he was telling me how I'm an idiot and I don't understand tokenization and how all things are going to get tokenized and how XRP is the future. And if I don't see that, I'm just
an XRP
he cannot.
Guy.
Yeah, well, he is now. He cannot believe that I could possibly not understand the things that he has seen. And, provenance is going to be really important. And just like, if I don't know that, then I'm stupid. And I'm just kind of sitting there listening to this and I'm like, oh yeah, I never heard this before. Oh, it was and then it went into how medical records are going to be on a blockchain and how, that's the best use for the blockchain and how he can't believe nobody's done it yet. And he would not accept that I've heard this idea 400,000 times. And this is it's total recycling of ideas. And everyone comes here, has exactly the same thoughts. Blockchains break brains. They do it because they actually are rocket science. And the people that get here don't realize that it takes a good 2 to 3 years to really even understand what you're looking at. So the discourse is, as it's always been, mostly stupid, sometimes smart.
It's Groundhog Day. Do you, so I'll throw this at you. Bitcoin is money, but, do you think there are perhaps niche cases that are non-monetary for Bitcoin? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there are people that use it in niche ways that are not monetary. Like we've seen that with the selling of JPEGs all over the blockchain. And I think it's really difficult because we have a purportedly open network whose function is, like the thing is, it's undecided. Bitcoin doesn't have to be a monetary network, right? That just seems to be its obvious first best use. And if that is its first best use, it probably needs to be its only use, right? But the fact that it's an open network doesn't mean that it means that you can't prevent abuses. And in part, that's why the block size is as small as it is. And that does allow for some, fuckery, right? Where people can flood blocks and make it difficult to transact and increase block rewards and such. I think that is a bit of I think it's legitimate to call that an attack, but I also think that it's difficult to mitigate because this is an open network. So I think what needs to happen is, and I've said this for a long time, as Bitcoin gets more and more used, you need Bitcoin's its first most important function to be monetary so that its blocks are filled with monetary activity. And until then, there are people that are willing to pay to use it for, stupid things like storage. And what are you going to do? Like, why would miners not take those increased fees? They don't care if the blockchain takes more to store. Look at Ethereum. If you want a full node on Ethereum, they're down to like full archival nodes. I think they have like 3 on their network.
Yeah. It's also really expensive just to run like full Ethereum nodes.
I was about to say is like, if you have a full archival node, I don't know what you're paying a year, but it's probably like $4 million to like maintain that thing. They're expensive to maintain. No one does it. So there is a price. But there is also like the reality is that, if you want a full node, it does need to remain small enough. And that number, the small enough, is going to increase as time goes on. Where 1.5 terabytes of data might be small enough today. Maybe in 10 years, 10 terabytes is small enough. Because remember, like storage capacity increases and it becomes cheaper. But right now, you want to keep it small because it's expensive. Storage is expensive. It becomes cheaper and cheaper over time. I think you do not want to increase the storage costs on people artificially for no reason very quickly. And that changes the dynamics of Bitcoin.
Are you like very worried about spam, or is this recent flare up in the debate kind of like this just uninteresting thing for you?
It's uninteresting. Spam takes care of itself. Like if there's something protocol wise where like maybe we've made a mistake and made spam really, really cheap, somehow maybe you need to fix that. But I don't necessarily know that that's what's happened here. It's sort of kind of happened, but the reality is that transactions, like you just really do need an increase in use in all sorts of ways. You need an increase of use in Lightning. You need an increase in use in everything else. And then people put whatever they want in the blockchain, and they pay to do that. There's spots in the blockchain for data, and people are going to use them for whatever they want. And I actually do enjoy a lot of these proposals. I think they make a lot more sense, where you do things like utilize, some of the computing space around Bitcoin to do things like storage, and to do some sort of prunable or non-prunable type storage systems tacked onto Bitcoin that are not part of the nodal network itself. I don't mind that. I almost wish that they'd done something like that with op return, right? Because any data you're going to be putting into the blockchain, if you had used the computational resources of like the nodes around Bitcoin, you would have you just have a better time, and make that sort of essentially non-prunable, in the sense that someone's going to be storing all of that data. It's really not that much data. So there are people that will store it, especially if they have incentive to store it.
I'm a pretty shameless like JPEG enjoyer, but my comment is always like, I want you guys to price me out. Like, to me, the best future is that I get priced out of putting my godforsaken JPEGs on your helpless little node. Because then I feel that Bitcoin is on a much happier path to dominate. As long as I, as a, this individual, not nation state backed, no Mossad here, as long as I can, afford to put whole JPEGs on Bitcoin, I feel that like we are failing at the adoption in some dimension.
Yeah, we used to call these stress tests, right? Like, I mean, it is stressful, but like we did stress tests. I mean, like, there's people that have like, I think my favorite stress test of the Bitcoin ecosystem was when I don't know who did it. It might have been Peter Todd, but there were people that were, speculating who did this years ago. But someone put like tons of Bitcoin into wallets that were put in input sizes that were the size of dust, and then they gave everyone the private key and said, "Go get this 20 Bitcoin." And the whole network, the whole mempool exploded for like a week, because no one could really extract it, because no one was willing to pay the fees to extract it, because it was so much more expensive than getting the 20 Bitcoin or whatever. So nobody wanted to pay the money to extract it, and it just exploded and destroyed the mempool. Like, nobody could put anything into the mempool for like a week or two. And I always thought that was a really interesting thing to do.
That's kind of identical to what a lot of the JPEG people do. Like, they spend all this money trying to like extract what was never economically feasible, either secondary tokens or base layer or whatever. But a lot of parallels. Everything old is new again. I want to kind of round this conversation out. I rarely talk about normie political stuff, but. Okay. I saw you tweeting about the latest thing, over the past couple weeks.
I'm into the latest things.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination?
Charlie Kirk. I mean, I drove by a billboard on my way here. So, I'm middle America. I'm in Kansas right now. So I actually saw more than one Charlie Kirk billboard today. So it's obviously a cultural moment for a particular set of Americans. I invite you to comment on it because, you have a way with words, and
that's kind of you. I'll go back. If you listen to Bitcoin Uncensored, we rarely talked politics at all. It was, I am a fairly apolitical being. And in recent years, the only reason I've sort of become engaged is because it's become obvious to me that right now our value system is under attack in America. And I think that value system is the only thing that really matters. Like, the reason Bitcoin Uncensored could get on and say anything we wanted, and to the cultural detriment or positive, effect, I don't know. But the reason we could get on and say anything we wanted and do the show that we did was because of America's values. And so I noticed, around 2017, 2018, that the values of the American, of America really began to get attacked. And I started watching a lot of people begin to believe lies and things that just, you could literally debunk by watching the actual event, right? Stuff like that. It was crazy. And then you'd show those people the event and they would still believe the lie. And so I've watched that progress. and I said this on Bitcoin Uncensored. I don't remember exactly what the topic was, but that the cultural stuff could only get stupider because we're not on a battlefield. So like it's always been this sort of civil war of intellectual ideas. And the problem with that is that once you march past each other and like the ghost lines go like this, you walk up, usually you get here and go, oh, shoot. And then at some point, this guy wins and this guy, they back and forth on the front line. Well, in intellectual ideas, you can do this, just walk past each other and kind of like leave you. So there was a walking past intellectual lines that happened probably around 2015 or 2016 that I noticed. And it was at that point that the two sides became unable to speak to one another because they were behind each other's lines. And what happens there is the ideas can only get stupider and stupider and stupider. And the thing that worries me is that at some point you realize that, and it goes, and the fight is taken from the intellectual and is, well, it's reified. And if you have the reification of intellectual battle, what you end up with is people shooting each other. And so that's been a fear of mine for a very long time. I think that the intellectual battle has been taking place for quite a while. And I think at this point, there's been a number of people that have realized that there is no way to reconcile the two sides because they're not only too far apart, they believe in different realities. And so the ultimate conclusion by many of those people is that the only way to bring about sort of a semblance of normalcy, and the only way to bring about a way to sort of stabilize the union, if you will, is to rid the union of the other side. And thus you get the beginnings of violence and what I would say are the beginnings of a kinetic war. And so when I saw Charlie Kirk get shot, I mean, he's not the first, right? Like we have there's been a number of assassinations or assassination attempts. I think there was a New Jersey, Kentucky, I think, or maybe Pennsylvania. Some of these, no one knows why these people were killed, or maybe they do now, and maybe it was or wasn't an assassination. But I'm just thinking there's the Minnesota Congress people. There's the two attempts on Donald Trump's life. And then now there's Charlie Kirk. And in the ensuing days, there was an attempt to put a pipe or a bomb on the bottom of a Fox News vehicle. There's been several attempts to have people have gone out and attempted to do like mass shootings, mass casualty events, and have been seemingly caught every time in the wake of the Kirk event, particularly during the day before the memorial yesterday. There was a guy caught with a gun and was posing as a police officer or law enforcement outside of the memorial service. So no one knows what his intentions were. So I fear that this is the beginning of the rise of kinetic fight. And I hope it's not, but it seems inevitable to me if we continue going in this direction, unless something changes drastically about how, about the realities that both sides are in. And I'm not saying it's a both sides issue. I would actually like to be very, very careful about that. It's not. One side lives in a semblance of reality, and the other side lives in a wholly created and constructed, like, dystopic world that I do not understand, where Nazis are running around the streets and murdering babies. And I don't understand how they've gotten there, but there seems to be no coming back from that.
Sometimes, a lot of Bitcoiners like to tell ourselves the myth that Bitcoin fixes this, but Bitcoin is one side of a very multifaceted human problem. And it can ameliorate some things, some social problems, but at the end of the day, we are still humans. And that is a very difficult, complex thing to try to solve.
Yeah. I do think I do want to say something about Charlie Kirk, though, and it's simply this. I spent a lot of time looking at Charlie Kirk and seeing his content and watching him and listening to interviews, and he's always come off to me as a sort of unintellectual doof. In the wake of his death, the number of conversations I've had with people who were affected by him and the number of people who knew him and the things he said in private as opposed to public, it has struck me that his outward appearance of being an unintellectual doof I think what he was displaying, it was humility. The number of things that he had his hands in, the number of ways in which he'd changed young Americans' lives, his generation, and the number of things that he did, he I didn't know this, but he had conferences going on for pastors and was attempting to get pastors to speak more politically in their churches. And some of the ideas that he had are things that I have said that I have not heard others say. Like the idea that, I'm a Christian. I believe that Christ is the manifestation of truth, and that if you believe true things, you will eventually, get to Christ, right? And that's been something that I have thought is important, that you should always try to believe true things in all things, no matter what those things are, because those things are reflections of Christ. And I think that's a fairly complex thought that I haven't heard a lot of people say. And because it particularly in evangelical circles, because it sort of bucks the idea that all you need to do is read the Bible, right? I think that all knowledge is important for understanding why you believe or don't believe. And I heard Charlie Kirk say something like that. Or I heard from his mentors and close companions that he said things like that. And I was surprised, because I think it is a fairly deep intellectual thought. And I think he had a number of those. And I think it's interesting because my perception that he was an unintellectual doof was so off. And I become more and more impressed by him as time has gone on.
Yeah, really similar. I saw a couple of billboards on the way over here, and it's funny because when he got shot, when he was killed a couple weeks back, I thought was it's kind of weird. I thought he was just kind of part of the, prominent talking heads in conservatism. But, maybe it's it's hard to say whether it's causation or coincidence that he is this Titanist figure now. Was Jimi Hendrix actually the best guitar player in the world, or did he happen to capture the moment of a generation? It's hard to say. So, Junseth, I really appreciate you finally doing this podcast with me. I appreciate your words. I cut my teeth on Bitcoin Uncensored back in the day. So, thanks for sticking around.
Though. I don't know how you did that. I'm amazed at the number of people
because I got married. I got married.
Wow, that'll do it. That'll do it.
Yeah,
that'll change you.
A woman who,
I had a child a year ago. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And that does the same thing. It kind of reinvigorates a spirit in you, and you just feel like you look at that thing and you're like, okay, fuck, I'm an utter failure. I've done nothing. I have to keep this thing alive now, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know. Do I have to get a job? I don't know. I don't know how to do this. And then you find out that you have no superpowers. You as a man, don't have any ability to keep it alive. You just have to hand it to the woman and be like, let her suck on you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly.
it's so weird.
It is, surreal. Having other people who rely on you. Bitcoiners love to promote self-reliance, but also we live in a society, man. So
yeah, man. Okay, that's true. And you go. I guess we're done.
Oh, I was gonna wrap it up. I was gonna wrap it up. Just
okay.
keep it,
wrap it.
50. Yeah, and cut.